All right, welcome to episode 3 of Hook 'em and Book 'em, presented by ATX Self-Tape, with the one and only actor, comedian, writer, producer, and Ukrainian model, Greg Berman.
Hook 'em and book 'em. I didn't even know that's what it was called. I love
That's what
it.
it's called. I just,
Hook 'em
because
and
it's
book
about,
'em.
hey, how do you hook them and then book them?
I like it. Hook 'em
So it's
and
that
book 'em.
simple. And dude, tell us about your journey. Introduce yourself to everybody and give us a background on you and your acting when you started and how you got to where you are now.
Well, it all starts about 35 years and 9 months ago. My parents were on vacation and one thing led to another. And no, let's see. I originally started I got into performance as a magician, actually, like all people do. I initially, I was just like, I love to perform and I've like owned doves in my life. And I started doing magic before I could even drive. And my dad would drive me to like birthday parties. I'd do like magic shows. And then of course I was like in like plays and stuff in high school. But, that was probably more to just like hang out with girls than it was to actually be an actor. And then I started doing stand-up comedy in high school, and that was really big for me, a huge transition because I kind of stopped doing magic and started doing stand-up because I don't know, I think I vibed with it more. Like magic always felt like I was just buying other people's like magic tricks and just performing them, so it didn't feel like as creative to me. But acting felt more creative. Stand up felt more creative because it felt like it was all coming from me. Um,
Right.
and I was always interested in like Saturday Night Live and all that stuff, like Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler movies. Like I grew up on that. Will Ferrell, like these are like my inspirations. Family Guy, like all of that stuff. But also some like weird stuff like Invader Zim, which I feel like is that's like it's like Rick and Morty from like the early 2000s, I feel
Hmm.
like, but for kids.
Hmm.
Um, so I was just like really into that stuff. And then I got into comedy, and then I did comedy right at the end of high school. So I started when I was like 17. I couldn't even get into most clubs at the time. Um, so I made a deal with the people there. I was like, you can put an X on my arm or something so that I don't buy alcohol. And I just, I was serious about it. So for me, it was like, I don't want to, there's like a whole like don't shit where you eat kind of a thing. And so like I tried my best not to do anything stupid in these places, like try to order alcohol when I'm underage and all that kind of stuff. So I did that. And then, of course, like once I got into stand up, like I started meeting people in this is Minnesota, by the way. I grew up in Minnesota. Um, so I started meeting people in like the acting and comedy community. And then eventually some of my comedian friends were like, you should try acting. And I was like, I've done that. And they were like, well, you should like get paid for it. So I was like, they do that? And they're like, not really, but maybe.
Very little.
Very little. So I essentially was like, I got repped by like there's like 3 agencies in Minnesota at the time. I was able to get the big one, and I started going out on auditions, and then eventually I booked some stuff that was SAG, like a commercial, and then like this big production that they did there called In an Instant, which was like a docudrama, and I played this farmer who got stuck in a corn silo for like a long, and he survived. He survived the whole process, and so that
Fun.
was actually kind of, and I didn't realize this until much later when I learned more about the rules of SAG. But essentially, if a production is a SAG production and wants to use a non-SAG actor, they have to justify to SAG why they're doing that,
Taft
which is
Hartley.
right, which is a really hard thing to do because SAG is going to push you to use someone who's SAG. Why wouldn't they? That's the whole point of the union. But I got lucky because I just happened to kind of look like this farmer guy. So for them, it was really easy to be like, no, we have to use Greg. He looks like this dude. And it was like, I don't think so. I think I'm way more nuts. But
Feel like I saw the picture and he was
I
not like me.
mean, look, Eric Baker, if you're watching this right now, I don't mean that. I think you're a very handsome fella.
But without your existence, you don't get that SAG card. So
Exactly.
thanks, Eric
So
Baker.
so thanks to Eric Baker's life-changing ordeal, that got me a Taft-Hartley, which was my second after having done like an extra on this commercial. And then my agent was like, we should see if we can get you into one of the shows in Chicago because it's like a quick 1 hour flight from Minnesota. It's like an 8 hour drive.
Good scene,
And
Chicago.
um it's a great city. And so I we got in with this woman named Claire Simon, and I don't know if she's still like the casting director in Chicago, but at the time she was the casting director in Chicago. So my agent messaged her and said, "Look, my client Greg is going to be in Chicago. He'd love to audition for Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med. Anything you have available, um, see if we can make it happen." And Claire was like, "Sure, he can come in and audition for one of those. That sounds great." So I flew out to Chicago to do an audition for like a guest star. And like anyone who's an actor knows that like no one makes that kind of financial investment to go and audition to be a guest star. Like we do guest star auditions like 4 weeks sometimes. You'd never pay a bunch of money to go to a city and be there just to go in for that, a 5 minute audition. But for some reason, I was like, you know what? Why did I get into this? I'll do it.
Why
And I think,
not?
and I think in some level, Claire was like, wow, he really made a commitment to come out here. So there's probably something within her that was like, well, I kind of want to pick this guy. Like he really came out here and he could do this job. That's the thing is that most guest star roles, like there's quite a few people who could make that work pretty well, and
Yeah.
so I think she was
Insert actor here.
exactly. And so I actually auditioned for Chicago Fire, went in, thought I had a great audition. And then, a day goes by, 2 days goes by, and I'm still in Chicago, and I'm like, I'm getting on a plane. In like 1 or 2 days, if I don't get a phone call, this was all for nothing. And not all for nothing. I would have learned a bunch of stuff along the way, but I was like,
Right.
this would have sucked. And then I get a phone call right before I leave, and I'm on the phone with my agent every hour. Anything, anything, anything.
Right.
Eventually, she's like, okay, I actually, I heard from Claire. That part wasn't going to work out for you, but she has another audition she wants to do if you can swing it before you leave. And that audition was literally, I believe, 3 hours before my flight. So I packed up all my stuff, had all of my luggage, showed up at the audition, did the audition, and then immediately hauled ass to the airport. And as I'm getting on the flight, um, I get a message from my agent. So this is now 2 hours difference. As I'm getting boarding the airplane, I get a call from my agent, and she was like, "They liked you. You're on check avail." And so I'm like, oh. And then I fly back to Minneapolis, and that was a Thursday or something. Um, then I'm sitting there now. We got a whole weekend where I'm sitting there going like, did I book Chicago
Right.
PD? Like this is yeah. And like, and then Monday comes around. I still don't hear anything. I'm like, I'm still on check avail, right? Of course, I'm out on the phone with my agent. And then finally Tuesday, she calls and goes, "You got it." And so then she goes, she's like, "You got the part. They need you in wardrobe, um, within 2 days." And I was like, damn. So then, of course, then I did that. And then I'm back out there. Now I was like, oh my God, I did it. I did it. I flew for this
Right.
audition. Got it. This was amazing. And then I got a call from SAG. They were like, you can't go on set until you pay your initiation fees, which was like $5,000, $6,000 or something like that at the time. And I was like, whatever, I don't care. Like this job is a wash, but now I'm in SAG. So
All this for a guest star, and now you're down 5 grand.
well, I guess I was even because I was on set for like 4 or 5 days and at SAG
Right.
minimum. I think that ended up paying for itself. But like I had a
Right.
full-time job at the time, so I wasn't so much worried about the money, which I will say really makes art more doable is having that full-time job cushion. It's like suddenly I wasn't like, I guess I can't do it. It was like, all right, here's your money. Like this is the runway I've earned myself to have.
Right.
Um, So that's kind of like what led to and then once I got into SAG, I was like, what am I doing in Minnesota? I will not be able to work in Minnesota
At
because
that
there's
point,
like,
just
yeah, it's
go.
like it's either, and look, there's a lot of commercials, but a lot of them were non-union. And every now and then there's a union gig that comes through, but it's like there's a lot of competition. And I was just like, what am I doing? I've
Okay.
always wanted to move to LA anyway. I was already doing a lot of stand-up. It was either LA or New York. And LA just felt sunnier and I have friends there. So I was like, let's just do Los Angeles. Then I came out to LA. I was already SAG. And then I just started grinding. I was my idea was is that breaking through in stand up was hard. There's just so many comedians, and I thought what I could maybe do is see if I can book some acting work. um my plan, my thought was, if I can book some acting work, I can get a nice big credit, and then with credits you can kind of tour. So it's like if I suddenly booked like a funny role on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, that's enough for me to go and tour the country as a comedian.
100%.
And it would be kind of like a faster way to get to that spot, which I already felt like I'd already been doing comedy for like 8 years by the time I moved to Los Angeles. So I like was ready to hit the road. I just didn't have the credits.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, now I'm in LA. Let's get some credits and then let's hit the road. So, and then I got here and realized it is not easy to get credits. That's
Easier said than
also
done, my friend.
very, very hard.
Easier
and
said than done.
and then I started getting the credits, like I was on Chicago PD. I was on at CIS, which you know well. We can get into that in a
We
second.
we need to get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. And then, there's just like a couple of like indies that did well, and I produced my own projects, and suddenly I had some credits. But then I realized comedy clubs don't care if you were on Chicago PD as an actor. They want to know which channels you were on as a comedian. And I'm like, damn it. So like, and of course I'm constantly getting booked as police because I'm 6'4" and look angry. And so I'm always a cop, and that doesn't necessarily help. And I speak Russian too, so I'm constantly auditioning for like thugs. I primarily play dudes with guns. Like that is, and now that I have tattoos, I'm
Even
done. That's
better.
it. That's only guys with guns. And you know what? Fine. Whatever. Whatever. I like I like my size. I'm not gonna apologize for it.
Push a Timur.
Uh Pusha Timur. Yeah, exactly. It's who I am. I can't fight it. So NCIS though, that was a Brett Stelter original booking.
Hey, so for everybody listening, I lived 3 minutes away from Greg when I was
So
in LA,
close.
maybe literally across the street, and right on Wilshire, on the corner of Wilshire, and we'd help each other audition, film our auditions, our self tapes and stuff. And there was the one for NCIS. I remember you were running on a bike.
It was on a bike, but it was funny because I remember it was like late at night. I remember I was like, God, I gotta get this thing in. Brett, I just gotta get this thing in tonight. I won't be able to do it tomorrow. Can you please come? And you were like, all right, I can swing by for like 30 minutes. I remember you were like kind of in a hurry. It was probably like 8 or 9. And I had to pretend like I had to be like a professional bicyclist,
Right,
cyclist of some sort. And yeah, I've ridden a bicycle, but I don't know
right.
anything.
Did
Uh,
method on that one.
Right. And then I remember you came over and we shot it, and
Yeah,
I was
you
just like pretending like I
100%.
was riding a bike.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, like you couldn't see like just like this you're seeing, you could see it looked like you're just
That's it. That's it.
this looks like you're on a bike, you're on a pedaling. So we framed them up and
But I always do that. I refuse to mime anything in a self-tape or an audition. I think it looks
okay.
stupid. I don't like mime. I don't want to mime a gun. I don't want to mime opening a bag. I don't want to mime handing paper to anyone. It all looks dumb. It all looks inauthentic. And I feel like I can't stay in character if I'm going like, hey, put your hands up. Like, what the fuck am I doing? So I what I try to do is anytime there has to be any kind of miming in an audition, I just either try to do it off camera so you can't see my stupid hand holding a stupid fake like air gun, or I like completely ignore that stage direction altogether because I think that what the casting director is looking for is a person. They're not looking for how well I manage props. When I'm in the space, when I'm in the room, I will have a prop and it's clear that I can use a gun. But in an audition setting, I'm not going to sit and fumble with something if that's what the script says. I just don't need to do that. I will do everything I need to do to showcase that whatever the intention of that prop is there. Same with fighting.
Yes,
Taking a
fighting is
punch.
a
Oh my God, taking a punch when you're alone on camera looks so dumb. So I do everything I need to do to show that I have been hurt, but I am not going, oh, like
right.
it's ridiculous. It's
Dude, and
crazy.
to your point, I've been on set multiple times where the lead actor, I'm just like a supporting guest or whatever. The lead actor is actually either with a gun or a guitar or a prop, and like they very clearly don't know how to use it.
Oh
And
yeah,
and I'm sitting there in my head going, "There's no way you did anything with this thing in the audition because
no way.
you don't know how to hold anything correctly, and
Well,
you
that's
look
on the
stupid."
actor. It's on them to figure it out. Like for example,
Right.
for this NCIS thing, when I booked it, I got a call from my agent and she told me that I booked it. And she goes, by the way, how familiar are you with cycling? And I'm like, I've ridden a bike before. She goes, no, no, no. You're gonna have to use like a real like road bike with the clip-in
Like
shoe. Have you
thin
ever done that?
wheels.
Yeah, with the clip-in shoe. The moment she said that, I was like, fuck, I've never done that.
I've
I've
watched Tour de
never
France though.
but I got nervous because what I didn't want is to show up on set and they're expecting me to just like get on and just ride around. And you know how it is on set. It's not like I just ride in one straight line. I
No.
have to keep a certain pace. I have to be able to turn around quickly. I have to start moving exactly when they
Deliver
say
your
to start.
lines, be in character.
Exactly. So that weekend, so I had to be on set the next week. I think it was 4 or 5 days from the time I booked it. That weekend, I called my buddy Brandon, who lived in Carpinteria, which is like an hour and a half north of here, and he loves cycling. He had two bikes, and I went over there for a day and just rode around town with him on his bike so I could learn how to use it. So by the time I got to
Nice.
set, I didn't look like one of those idiots going like, "How do I hold the guitar?" You
Nice.
got to figure that stuff out. That's your job as an actor. Um,
100%.
but what was great was on set, I just had a moment during lunch where I was sitting next to the director of the episode, and she was such a nice person. So kind. And she remembered my audition and she was like, and when I sat down next to her, she goes, "Great job." And I was like, "Thank you, I appreciate it." She goes, "It's so cool. You were like the only person who actually like rode a real stationary bike for the audition."
And you
And
know what? I
I,
remember us specifically talking about that.
yeah.
Like, because
And I
I
was,
think we did a couple takes I think you just either out of breath, not
yeah,
necessarily riding the bike.
yeah,
And then as soon as you started doing the writing, the cadence was easier and
yeah,
it was the natural
yeah.
flow.
And it felt more real to me. And I looked at her and I started laughing and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "I was not riding a stationary bike." And she was like, "You fooled me." She was like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there was no bike. I was just kind of I I just had my hands off screen. I was just kind of doing this thing." And she
Like
goes,
this, right? Just,
"Yeah, just below screen so you
yep.
could see the top of my forearm." And she was like, "Wow, that's pretty impressive because I you really fooled me." And I was like, "Great." And that's why I got
And scene.
and I don't know if that's why I got it. I mean, maybe it is, but the fact is that I could never have thought that. If I had tried to do what she wanted, which is to ride a real stationary bike, I would have like I would have, maybe I thought like, oh, I'm gonna go find a friend who has a Peloton. I don't even think they had Pelotons at the time,
No,
but like
I
I'm
was
gonna
gonna
go
say this
find a
was like 10 years
friend who
ago.
had a Peloton or some sort of stationary bike and go do it. And you know what? Maybe I still would have gotten the part because clearly she was like kind of expecting it or something. But what I'm trying to prove is that you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't know what they want, and you don't know the things that you can give them. What I gave them was what she was looking for, which is a guy talking about a girl he had called on the phone while riding a bike with his buddy. That's it.
And you never know what they're looking for.
One
And
time, I remember this was such a discouraging thing. Um, One time I was auditioning for SWAT on the Warner Brothers lot. There's a guy there who really liked my stuff. He kept calling me in, and I haven't heard from him in a real long time. He also used to book Shameless, that show on Showtime, um, with William H. Macy. I think he
Yeah,
did
good
that.
show. Emmy Rossum and William H.
Yeah.
Macy. And
I auditioned for it a bunch of times, never got on it, but he brought me in all the time. And he used to bring me in for SWAT. I think it was SWAT. It was either SWAT or SEAL Team, something like that. One of the military shows. And I had to play a bad guy one time. And it said in the script that the guy had a huge scar that like went down like through his eye. And so I was like, let me try something. So I called up my friend who's a makeup artist and I was like, hey, if I paid you like $50, can you throw a scar on my eye? Let's just do it. It'll just be fun. Like you can practice. I'll pay you some money and then I'm going to go do this audition. So I did it. I got the scar. It looked super cool. I showed up. I was so memorized. I was like, I am walking out of this fucking trailer with this role right now. And I was so excited the whole drive. And then I got there. They call me in. I get up to the front of the room. They're all sitting there, expressions unchanged. No one says a single thing about the scar that I have created on my face. I do what I believe was a pretty good audition. And then they go, thank you so much. And I started walking out. And as I'm walking out, the guy goes, and thanks for recreating the scar. Very offhand, very just like, yeah, whatever. Hey, thanks for doing the scar thing. That was super cool. Bye. And I didn't get the part. Nothing. Just like, and I thought that I was like,
wow.
here I am delivering to them the perfect thing that will definitely land me this part.
And we wonder why everyone in our industry is jaded.
It
You
was
go ahead.
discouraging because I thought I'd done the coolest thing. I thought I'd really like game the system or something like that. Like I was really showing up. And you know what? Maybe it was memorable.
Right. And that's not to tell people not to do that. That's
Go
not to
for
tell
it.
people, and that's what I love talking about this stuff with. So people that are listening, whether you're union or non-union, go with your gut. And
Yeah.
if you have a friend, hey, that you have time and you have the money, do a scar. Or hey, if you have an extra day or two and you need some certain jacket, go to Goodwill or thrift store
You can
and
find
pick it
I
up.
always, this is the thing. And I think this really gets into the core of like, for me, I really I don't like self tapes, and I don't think anyone does. I mean, they're really difficult to do because you're in your own comfortable space. You just like, you don't, it doesn't feel, it feels different waiting in a room to go into a room with the decision makers, make an impression on them, do something interesting, get some immediate feedback, try some different stuff. I think a lot of what I love about in-person auditions is getting to work with the person who's doing the casting. Hey, I love that. Let's try it again, but this time give me a little bit more this and this. And now I'm like, now not only can I show you what I've done, but I can show you that what I've done isn't the final product. It's here for us to mold together.
And to your point, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
No, I was just gonna say in a self-tape you don't get that. But what I
And,
like to do,
and
what I
yes,
do instead in a self-tape is I try to make it cool and fun for me. So whenever I do a self-tape, I always, every self tape I've submitted has some thing that I feel like is a little goofy, a little kooky, a little bit out there. I will shoot self tapes and make them look like short films. If there's a scene at a door, you bet your ass I'm doing it at a door. I know
yeah,
that every self tape instruction says do a nice flat gray background and
right, like this, like,
make sure that it's completely flat and gray and this is the fuck that shit. No one if
and then
you
you see the people that booked it and you see their audition, and it's not that.
no, because in the end, the casting director is a creative person. I hope, in theory, they're a creative person. So that means that if I give you something kind of creative and something interesting, you're either going to go, no, I don't vibe with that, or you're going to go, whoa, cool. But no matter what, you'll
Right.
have an opinion about it. Or was it just lucky? Or was it that just I landed one thing just the way she wanted? Or maybe it was that
Hmm.
the other person they wanted was just like a little too tall, and they had a bike that could only, well, that's actually not possible because I'm really tall, but like maybe too short, and their bike was already big, the one that they bought, so they needed someone tall. So there's a million things it could be, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a legitimate option. I wanted to be when she thinks back to all of the auditions she watched, I want her to be able to, in one word, go, "Oh yeah, the bike guy," because that's what I'm aiming for. And when you
Mhm.
look at my audition tape, I want there to be something that you go, "That's different." Even if it's just for like a second or just something that makes you go at the end of everything when you've seen 50 to 100 of them. I want you to go, "Oh yeah, that was that guy who like opened the door. That was the dude who
And
like,
exactly.
yeah."
And, hey, we'll take them. But if somebody likes you, they like you.
In the end, I think it comes down to me is that the audition process, it can't be precious. It can't feel like the like something that is supposed to get results. For me, and I know
Exercise.
it's so trite, and everyone always says this, but I just do my best to go, hey, whatever this audition's going to be, it's a fun challenge. I'm going to treat it like a little art project, like a little art homework assignment. Whatever I submit at the end is the best thing that I could do in the time given to me. And all I want to do in that audition is to give them a taste of how I'm going to show up to set. I want them to see that audition and go, hey, this guy looks like we could work with him. And I try to make that come across in my slate too. I know in your slate, it's kind of the same stuff every time, but I really, really so desperately in that slate when I go, hi, my name is Greg Berman. I'm 6 foot, I always say 6'3", but really I'm 6'4". I
Do you
put
slate in character?
no,
Okay. Because
it's your
I
one
know some
time to
people
be
do, some people
you.
don't.
It's your one time to be who you are. And they should know that I'm an actor. They should know that my piece
Right.
isn't done. Like maybe I'll slip. Sometimes I'll go, like if it's for a Russian audition, I'll do it my normal in my English normal. And I'll go like, my name is Greg Berman. I'm 6'4", originally from Ukraine. So I speak fluent Russian. And then maybe I'll throw something in at the end that's kind of a wink to the audition where I'll
Little
go like,
button.
so if you need translation, I help you with this too.
Perfect.
I'll just like a little thing so that they know, hey, I'm a nice guy. I have a sense of humor. I'm
Right.
open to collaborating.
As opposed to being like, hey, it's Greg Berman. I'm this Southern guy. Thanks for booking me, and we'll see you later.
It's so impersonal. I'm a human, and this is a job interview, and you and I are interacting so that you and I could make a cool thing together, like a cool piece of art. I want you, the casting director, to nail this because if they pick the right person, the person who hired that casting director will be so happy with that casting director. So every time they're watching that tape, they're trying to think, who is the person that's going to represent my taste the best to these people who are paying me?
Right.
And that's a lot of
I mean,
pressure.
they're putting their stamp of approval on you.
100%.
And if
100%.
you don't deliver, then
It's on
you
you.
don't know how that's going to affect, what if they're on thin ice with productions?
They got to be
It,
really careful. And production is fickle. And sometimes last minute, you'll watch 100 auditions and production will be like, you know what? This guy's sister is actually available. We'll just use her. And you're like, cool. You know,
great.
but I think that the audition process, because of how commoditized it's become, because there's all these different platforms and there's all this different stuff and this and these
These
classes and
self-tape
this
businesses.
classes, all of this stuff, it's become too formulaic. And I think the people who are booking and the people who are really able to break through it are, I always think back to that, the way that Jason Momoa booked Khal Drogo on Game of Thrones,
Great audition.
that haka that he did. It was personal to him. Khal Drogo is not Maori or Maori. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it.
You know,
Right. But Jason Momoa is of that culture, and that
yes.
was his opportunity to show them a animalistic ferociousness that they didn't ask for. They didn't know that they wanted to see a haka. Otherwise, they would have put that in the script and they would have called a bunch of people who do hakas. And
And they
there
would have
might
seen
even
20.
they might even be people who are even better than Jason Momoa at the haka and probably could have landed the Khal Drogo part, but none
Yeah.
of them did it. None of them thought to do this personal thing that was really vulnerable and really authentic to Jason Momoa. And that's why he nailed it because he
Yeah.
went in there and did that thing, and we were all like, I want
And
to see that
when you
again.
watch that, it's you can't. He's not holding back at all. Like
He's
there's
in it.
no, he's fully in it. He's fully there. And he's borderline scaring them. Like if I was in casting, I'd be like, whoa, this guy is kind of
That's the whole
intense.
point of the haka.
This
The
is
whole
called
point
Draga. Like
is the intensity.
I would probably bet that they were like, yo, this is our guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
The other big one that I always remember, that's a similar thing, is that guy, was it Dacker Montgomery? The dude who played, I think it was Billy in Stranger Things or something, that guy, the older brother who was like a little crazy. There was a scene he had to do where he was like, there's that scene in Stranger Things where he's got the car and he like hits the gas and there's a person and he feels like a very like chicken situation, and his sister's in the car and there's like all this tension, and then he like last
mhm.
minute he swerves out, but it's like this crazed thing. And can you imagine doing that in an audition? Like pretending to drive and then swerve. Just like it's so stupid. So he did, I think he just danced. I actually think that he just did like a really weird, like kind of like intense dance. It was like kind of I don't know. I had to watch it again. It's been a while, but I remember thinking like, wow, that's nothing like what I thought and what that moment was. And he booked that part because of his kind of unique take on it. And I think the caveat is they might not like it. They might think it's too much. They might think it's try hard or desperate or needy, and
Yeah.
that's okay. Or they
Yeah.
won't. Or they'll think it's super cool that you did something creative because you're an artist, and you got to keep it fun for yourself. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Right. Or the casting director may not have liked it, but the producers were like, no, that's you have no idea. But it definitely hooked them, with the choice that he made, an authentic choice. And I think that's what we're really drilling down to is just make genuine, authentic choices and be real. As real as you can be in whatever scene you're creating and world you're creating. And like you said, if you have the ability to add some cool stuff, I've seen self-tapes that look like mini short films now. And the lighting is dynamic and they're like walking into frame, you know what I mean? Like they cut locations and you're like, what? That's that's a choice.
Look, it's like anything else. If you There's a lot of people who are in the acting world who have had other jobs, and maybe they can relate to this. But like, if you're in a sales position for a tech company and you're pitching a company to use your tech, you want to wow them. You want to give them something that they're going to remember. And some people might go over the top. Some people might do not enough. And it's always a question mark of what is the perfect center, and you're never going to know. But as long as you're always making a choice from some sort of center that of your taste, and that's something that I think I pulled that from stand-up comedy because someone gave me some really great advice about stand-up comedy a long time ago. They said, anyone who gives you, oh wait, no, Steve Martin. It was Steve Martin in his masterclass in the app masterclass.
Yeah, yeah,
Steve
yeah. I
Martin
remember
says
those.
that he says that stand-up comedy is just you sharing your taste with the audience, and I think that's so true.
It's a great, great saying.
In a self-tape, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share with you my taste in acting, in character, in
Your
story.
style.
Exactly. I want to show you what it's going to look like when I show up to set and I do this part. And there's a million different actors who will give you a million different things, but this is what I'm going to give you. And you're either going to like it or you're not. And I am okay with both
Yeah.
because I want to only work on the things that I am great for, you know?
And
And
the
I think,
ones that are asking, like you see breakdowns a lot that are asking for like, hey, put your Instagram and how many followers you have and all that stuff. And if, that's a choice. If you want to do those, that's a different type of production. I'm sure people are always mindful of how many followers we have now, but at the end of the day, you know, it's not going to matter what the quality of production it is. Like, yes, it might help you get the role, but what if it's a terrible disaster of a movie and you get cut out of it, or something like that happens. And, but like you said, it's I still keep going back to dating, man. Like you just said it, like show up, show them something original but real and new. Like if you show up to a date, if you're trying to date around and you show up and you're, hey, how was your day? What do you do? Blah 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 blah. It's okay, not a terrible guy, but where's the, style and
But if you show up and you're like way over the top and you're putting on this persona of like, hey, what's up, baby? How you doing?
right.
Uh, you know, there's a chance that she might like sniff that out and be like, oh, this is not who he is. Or the actual worst case scenario is that she loves that guy. And now it's on you to maintain that character
Now
for
you
what?
really are playing a character.
Yeah, the rest of your life. When are you going to drop that act? So
Right.
if you hook them with something that you're not actually capable of doing, all
Mm.
you're setting yourself and them up for is disappointment. So
Hmm.
hook them with you, because
Right.
if you hook them with a version of you, then you're going to have to be that version.
Man, I really
And
like that what you just said. Hook them with you.
hook them with you.
And because that's what they're booking. They're not
Yeah,
booking their character you're playing. They're booking you. And I spoke with on one of the last episodes, we spoke about booking the room and not the
very important.
role. And book the room. Go in there. It's it's the same thing when you walk in a room and everyone goes, "Who's that? That guy is confident. He's got swagger. He's got a unique style. Everyone seems to like him. I want to know that guy. I don't know if he's right for this role, but I would like to see him again."
Well, hooking the room and booking the room um is a concept that is applicable to all forms of art. Art is an incredibly relationship-based business, and
Shout out to the
trying to
humans.
book, yeah, and trying to book a single job is a very short-term goal. You're only going to have that job for that time, and then what are you going to do? You have to book the entire collection of people that are a part of that job, because you never know who's in that room. You never know who's going to see it. You might not book that role, but you might catch the attention of a casting assistant who watched your tape and it didn't proceed, it didn't move forward. But that casting assistant 3 years later is in another desk and goes, there's a guy. I remember this dude
Mm-hmm.
who showed up and did a really weird dance for this one thing. Let's see if I can remember who that guy was. And what makes a good casting assistant good is how good their memory is and how well they can recall those things. And so when you're booking the room, you're thinking about the long-term picture. Every single celebrity that I have heard interviewed always talks about one common thing, and that is that a job is just one job. You never have the promise of more work, whether it's Tom Hanks or insert YouTube star here.
Right.
Everything is gig by gig by gig. You could be you could be the most brilliant actor in the world, and your rise could be as quick as your downfall. And so many times it has nothing to do with who you are or what you've done. A lot of times it does. Some of y'all
Most of the
fucked up.
time it
Some of y'all fucked up.
does.
Other times it's not that. And so
No.
you always have to assume that every person that you're working with, you might work with them again in some capacity, no matter which
That's
way
a
you
great
do it.
way of putting it because in the real world, like say you're bartending or serving or just working whatever job you're working as you pursue this journey, it's very easy to get in your mind of going, well, I don't care. I'm never going to be back here, or I'm never going to see that person again, or I don't care if this job, is a burned bridge because, like you said, what if in a year or two you have a stratospheric rise and then you have a month-long downfall and you need a job as a bartender or a server and you got to come hat in hand groveling like, hey, I'm so sorry, or it just makes it a lot tougher. And this industry is one of the very few, other than like sports is one where you get traded and be like, ah, crap, I've got beef with this guy.
Yeah.
But it's such a collaborative art form from top to bottom. From, like you said, when you arrive, you check in with the PA. What if that PA doesn't like you? And or whatever the case may be. And then you talk to him, and that person or him or her could say, hey, this person was, you have
And what
no
if that
idea.
PA is the little brother of the main character and it gets back to that person that you were a dick? And
Uh-huh.
you should always be, look, I think none of us are successful enough, and I'm including the famous of the famous. Even they are not sometimes successful enough to be able to withstand a bad reputation. I have heard some crazy stories about
Yep.
certain celebrities that are consistent, like frequent mentions of that thing. Have they lost work because of it? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not them. But I
Right.
know that I would really, really love to not be the person that's discussed in that way when I'm not in the room. And
Right.
so everything that I do and the way I conduct myself is always open and understanding and considerate of ideas and thoughts. I might disagree. And actually, I like disagreeing on a creative in a creative way. One of the biggest reasons that I miss in-person auditions is I really love to collaborate
Yes.
in art in general. And so when I was in the room with people and they gave me notes, I'd have like a little back and forth with them. Like they're like, "Can you give me a little bit of this, a little bit of faster on this part?" And I go, "Oh, I understand because you want this." And now we're both
It'll
like
make sense.
excitedly coming up with a thing together. And now they feel like we're working together. And now we have a relationship that we've just established
Hmm.
instantly. And so I really want everyone that works with me to feel like their idea is valid. And I will, I will argue if I don't agree with it. But if you can convince me otherwise, I am 100% always down to change.
Yeah.
I'm not precious about anything. If you, if I tell you, but I think it's like this, and you're like, yeah, but think about it like this, and you're like, ah, man, you're right. Okay, let's do it.
And film is a director's medium and and a writer's medium. So if the director says, listen, I really love what you did, but we just need a different, we just need a different take. And you got to work with them. That they hired you to do what they want, and give them what they want. And sure, you can, like, that's when I love working with directors where I'm like, hey, listen, don't sugarcoat it, be direct. I'm a very thick-skinned person. If you cut and you say, listen, that is not at all close to what I want, I won't be offended, you
Yeah.
know, because I'm here to work. I'm here to do a job and create this character. And if I'm not giving you what I want, then I'm not doing my job.
And you know, another thing I would say, and this was a real defining moment for me in my career. Um, During the pandemic, I did this play and it was shot on Zoom with green screen. So I was essentially like the director of the play had this crazy idea of having someone ship us green screens to the three actors who were in the play. And through OBS system, like we were able to place ourselves in the same room and we were acting
Hmm.
together, but through Zoom.
Yeah.
So I would be sitting next to my like wife or so girlfriend or something in the show. Of course, she's not here with me, but it was like a self tape, but live, and we would do takes. It was very interesting. But I'm not going to say any names, obviously, or what the production was, but I really didn't vibe with it. I
Right.
didn't like the I didn't like the way it was being done. I didn't like the direction. I didn't really like the script. You know, I just didn't feel like it was such a torturous experience for me to sit through, and it was like a week of shooting. It's like a whole
Mm.
week where we had to do this thing every
Mm.
night. And it was hard. And I had dogs, so I had to like keep them in the room and try to keep them quiet. They would ruin takes
Shout out
sometimes.
Leon, Phoebe.
Yeah, shout out Leon and Phoebe. But like but the reason why that was a really defining moment for me in my acting career is I remember at the end of it going like, you know, do I really love do I love acting enough to be able to change my attitude about how I feel about what I'm doing right now?
Hmm.
Because I'm a person with a lot of passions. There's a lot of things that I do. I produce a lot of stuff. I do stand-up comedy. I'm an actor. I tattoo. I really love to be a multi-medium. I like to explore new mediums of
Same.
storytelling within it, right? And there was a point where people in Hollywood, especially, they want to put you in like a not a box, but like they just want to say like, what do you want to do? Because you kind of have
They
to
want
be
it
able to
easier for
answer.
them.
You gotta be able to answer that somewhat, because if someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey, I like you and I want to help you. What do you want?" and you give them a long, convoluted story of what you want, then they're not able to help you because
Yeah.
people want to help, but they want to know what they're helping.
Yep.
So for the longest time, people would say, "Well, what do you want? Do you want to be an actor? Or do you want to be a comedian?" And I would always say, "Why do I have to choose? I would love to be both." Um, and I really believed that. And I would sit and do all kinds of soul searching to try to understand, am I an actor or am I a comedian? What what do I want from this? And that what I guess I kind of realized is if I was put in the same position in stand-up comedy. So let's take this sort of, in my opinion, nightmare acting situation that I didn't want to be a part of. It was a long, grueling thing. There was nothing interesting to me about this. I
Right.
just had to get through it. I wasn't getting paid nearly enough or anything. I don't even remember. Whatever. But if I did that same thing in stand up, what would be the same version of that? Performing for three people in some biker bar or something like that, where it's like really loud. And I thought to myself, like, I've done that. And I had a great time. And
That'd be more fun.
it was not perfect. And it was still hard. And I still had to push through difficulty. And I had driven for 4 hours just to get to that biker bar. It was a nightmare situation. But in that situation, I still had more fun. And I had to ask myself, why? Why? What is the difference between those two things? And what I
Mm.
really ended up realizing is the thing that you love, the thing that really lights your fire, is the thing that you are willing to do in the most torturous situations. And in that moment, I realized that although I love acting and I will continue to do it, and I love auditions and I love the challenge and the artistic version of it, what I did realize in that moment is that I I don't have the kind of passion for acting that I do for comedy. Because comedy, you can put me in the worst possible situation and I will still try to come up with a way to make it fun for me because I have the artistic depth and the knowledge to be able to turn that around. I think for acting, maybe I just realized in that moment that I didn't have that artistic depth. And maybe that's something I could get. And maybe that's something I could go and take classes and find that kind of artistic depth that even in a torturous situation, I could still make it fun and challenging for myself.
Hmm.
But I haven't done that and I haven't pursued it to that depth. And to me, that just means that, you know, maybe for me, stand up comedy is a bigger, more important thing that I would be willing to sit through a torturous situation. Whereas acting, I just don't have it in me. So now I just know that about myself. But it took that experience to learn. And now I like have a bit of a clearer picture of who I am as a performer.
And it's interesting because if you get put in let's say, two equally terrible scenarios, the acting one lasts way longer than a 10-minute set that say you bomb. You're like, okay, well, I got 8 more minutes of torture. I'm good. As opposed to
Well,
like,
but the thing about comedy is it's not just the time on stage. It's everything around it. Because a lot of
right.
time in comedy, you probably drove to that venue. You're probably staying in some shitty, like some really crappy condo or something. Like, in comedy there's other things that are just as really
Yep.
crappy about it, and I'm not saying I like them. And I would rather not be
Right.
tortured in either situation, but I think that what you have to ask yourself is, under which circumstances would you still find the creative flow and the thing in your life that would push that you could push the furthest before you were like, I can't do this
Before it
anymore.
drains you.
Yeah, is the thing that you should probably at least consider at that time as a primary focus.
I'm with you.
Because I think that as artists we have a lot of stories to tell. And I think that sometimes those stories have a lot of different modes that they can come out in, whether it's writing or acting or comedy or poetry or painting. There's tons of things you can do. There's all these ways you can express yourself. And it's easy to get sidetracked.
Right.
But I think that if you ever want to do a test on yourself to try to figure out what is that thing that burns within me that I could do while someone is shoving bamboo under my fingernails, that's probably the thing you should at
Yeah.
least at that time. That's the thing,
Yeah.
is that could change. That could change. Next year I could have a conversation with you and I could be like, you know what? I don't know about comedy. I really feel strongly about acting. And that's okay. It's okay to change.
That's
It's okay to
fine.
be different. It's okay to like cycle and flow through your life and see where
In
you
my
start.
opinion, that's healthy
Okay.
because it's like being a multi-sport athlete in high school. You work out different, you know, being a soccer player helps you being a basketball player. Being a basketball player helps you be a better football player. And, being a good comedian helps you be, in a lot of ways, a better actor and vice versa. And to your point, I figured out real quick, anybody will figure out real quick if you actually like filmmaking, take comedy out of it, whether it's comedy or drama. When you're on set 12 hours or you've driven and then your car got towed and now you don't have any money and then you have to go to work tomorrow and you're like, why am I doing this? And if the answer is not because you absolutely have to, then like you said, don't stop necessarily, but just open up to other options. Because
No,
what if you're a
absolutely.
phenomenal photographer?
Yeah.
And that's for me. Like my photography is just my fun outlet. Like I do a niche black and white film photography. I enjoy it because it helps me document my life and my journey.
Hmm.
But am I out there? I've done some art galleries and stuff like that, but I'm not. If someone to your point was like, "Hey, what do you do? Are you a photographer?" I'd be like, "I do photography, but I'm not a photographer by trade."
Yeah, but you're not down to go and work a 3-day wedding and shoot a wedding because
No,
that's not because
no.
if you really loved photography, you'd be like, you know what? Let's do it. I
Well,
bet
whose
I could
wedding
bring,
is it?
huh?
Well, whose wedding is it?
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But you'd be like, but there's a chance that you'd be like, oh, wow, 3 days at a wedding. Okay, I could bring this camera and this camera. I bet I could get some really cool shots of this. And you start building it like this cool kind of concept idea in your head. That means you probably really love photography, that you're taking this horrible experience and trying to make it something for your artistic. Like, all right, if I can't get enough money and I can't get enough comfort out of this, I might as well get some sort of artistic satisfaction out of
Right.
it. Right.
It's like
Like,
some sort of muscle in this
right,
exercise we're
exactly.
doing.
Exactly.
And it's interesting we kind of got to this point because during the pandemic, nobody was really doing anything, well, production wise, everything was shut down. So it was on you to do creative things on your own. And
Right.
we did that, where we did 244 years later, a film that I wrote where we were just hanging out, doing some artistic stuff, just chatting, I think on the crow's nest and just chatting. And I was like, I've always had this dream of me like playing chess against myself. And I have this spoken word thing, but I don't really know what to do with it. And both you and I had a bunch of footage from the protests and around COVID. And you were like, well, hey, let's just shoot something in the basement. We got time. So we went down there, put a little chessboard up there, and you just started filming some stuff. And I was like, all right. And you're like, I'm gonna go home and edit it. And like a month later, it just showed up, and I was like, this
Yeah.
is like perfect. This is
Yeah.
awesome. And it was a $50 budget for the music.
Well, that's a thing. I'm really good friends with this guy named Lloyd Schwartz, who is the son of Sherwood Schwartz, who is the creator of the Brady Bunch at Gilligan's Island. And
Okay.
Lloyd is like a Hollywood, I mean, this guy is like mid 70s and has been around Los Angeles and
Legend.
Hollywood his entire life. He's like a legend, knows all of these people, has met Richard Pryor, like all of the greats you can imagine. He's like friends with them, has met them, worked with them. And we'll grab breakfast every now and then. I love sitting and chatting with him. But he talks about this thing called the Happy Project. That's what he always calls it, the Happy Project. And the Happy Project is a story that you have in your head, but there's a million different ways for that story to be told. And eventually that story has to find its happy project. So sometimes you might write a book and go, "Yes, I don't know, this is right." And then you're like, maybe let's try it as a play. This could be a play. And then you write it as a play. I just don't know if that's right. And then you create it as like an expressive poem, and suddenly it like clicks into this zone where you're like, oh, this medium gives me exactly what I need to communicate this like perfect idea that I really want to like do. And that's when the project is the happy project. You had a poem that was like, yeah, cool, I got a poem. That's
Yeah.
cool. And then you had this like other visual idea, me playing chess against myself, cool. But if you shot you playing chess against yourself just for fun, you'd be like, what the hell is this? But then you set it against the backdrop of the poetry. Now it's like, oh, that's interesting. Now there's like symbolism. And then you start adding in the protest footage. Now it gives it context. And now you got a happy project.
That you made a great point where over the years I'd tried to write dialogue, like witty political dialogue, like back and forth, like before you make a move and like and it just wasn't working. I'm like, this is
It's not
too
even
on the
preachy.
button, too on the
It was like,
nose.
yeah, it was like on the nose and preachy, because that's what happens is when you show up to a project and the goal of the project is to be impactful, ugh, that just all gets
That's a big and that's a great point because that's where we've gravitated to in culture right now is people are producing things for intentional impact as opposed to like saying, listen, this is a thing that's deeply personal to me. And
let's discuss
I
it.
every time, and so 244 years later, that dude, that little film, 2 minutes long, we did changed my life. And and I don't mean like in a lot of ways where one, it was a poem of a 2016 that I really felt deeply about that I wanted to get out. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. And then it allowed me, bro, I can't tell you, that was the first time for a month where I was just stress free. Like usually I'd be like, where's the guy? Where's the edit? Is he going to get it back to me? And I treated one of my last directors not so kindly because I was going through some anxiety where I'd be like, hey, on my, hurry up. And when I let it go and just let you do what you do, I got it back and I was like, I wouldn't change a thing. Well, I changed one thing and it was the music, but that wasn't but it was a slight little, hey, we just need a quicker little beat. And that's it. $50 for a great soundtrack. And
Yeah.
it got a lot out of me emotionally that I needed to get out and gave me
Well, there's
gave me some of those laurels. I mean, it's screened
yeah,
in 8 countries, dude.
yeah, for something that just sort of happened, but this is something that I think like my fiance, who Brett knows and actually knew before I even knew her, she has this concept that she talks about called the puke method, and that she went to art school, so she's like spent like a whole
She's a
four
great
year years
artist.
thinking about art and all that stuff, and she's a really talented painter. But one of the things that she always talks about is how you should always use what's around you and let your surroundings and your experience at any given, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, she has a manifesto about it, but um I'm paraphrasing, but use your surroundings and everything you have around you to
And
put together
the way she says it with her accent sounds way
way
cool.
cooler. But to use your surrounding to like create art that is completely like ephemeral and of the moment. It's like and since then I've done a lot of like reading about like Eastern philosophy and all these kinds of things, and meditation, and this non-striving attitude of when you push, you get a product that feels pushed. When you do something because it just comes, because it just exudes from you, everyone can feel how natural that is. And I think that's why 244 worked, was because we didn't set out to make an impactful film about racism and social justice and civil rights. We had some feelings that we put into a 2 minute thing and made it pretty. And that is what art is. Honestly, it's like I
You
have
just
some
gave me goosebumps again, man.
I just I have some feelings. I put it into something and I made it pretty. And the making it pretty is important. That you can't forget that. because so much of an art is also aesthetic choices,
Right.
because you can't just communicate a thought and make it ugly and
Right.
stupid.
That's not where, right. We're not saying don't put effort into what you're doing.
And maybe ugly is the effort. Maybe you want it to be ugly, but it has to be a
Hmm.
choice. It has to be an intention. The
Intentional.
presentation of the feelings is important. It has to be chosen. You can't
I
just
I don't know if I
accidentally do
told
it.
you this. Like a month or so after we submitted to a bunch of film festivals, and once it was kind of going, I got an email back from one of the ones we got into, but it we didn't win. I think we got like second or something like that, or third, which is amazing, um, in its own right. But she actually emailed me and said, "Hey, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that I've rewatched your film a couple times because it's only 2 minutes long." And she's like, "I just want to let you know, I wish I would have put it first."
Huh.
Like she said that. And she said, because this, I now realize the purpose of this is to slowly burn inside of you
Yeah.
while it resonates as the world shows you how accurate this is.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I just want to let you know that it's impacting me more over time as it was
Stayed
when
with
I
her.
just watched it.
It stayed with her, and we didn't mean to do that.
No.
We weren't like, let's make a 2 minute film that stays with you. We were like, let's do this thing we care about and then hope it stays with people. And it did,
Yep.
because it's, impactful.
And I
It's
did the voiceover in your closet or like
Oh yeah,
your
in our laundry
garage.
room. But that was actually kind of like the perfect voiceover space.
Yep. And I did it a couple times, and you're like, we tracked it to 2 minutes, and cool, on to the next one. And no, that really proved to me that independent filmmaking, truly independent filmmaking, especially experimental, because that is an experimental film. Like it's not a
Yeah,
narrative film. And like someone can't be like, let's make a pilot out of it. And you're like, that's not,
not
I,
how that works.
you're just making a whole new story up at that point.
Yeah.
But that really made me realize that just piece it together, just whether it takes you, and to your point, gravitating from acting to comedy, I actually prefer the writing, producing, directing process because that's fun. Like
Yeah.
when you're in a writer's room writing jokes, and you're just spitballing, you're like, that's fun,
Well,
or
that's the thing. We've talked about this. You've done stand-up comedy. You've
yeah,
considered it. And there was a point where you're like, I love stand-up comedy. I'm gonna get back into doing stand-up comedy. I love but like you haven't. And
yeah.
and it's because it doesn't call you that much.
It's
I think
interesting you say it. It's been chirping because in Austin, there's a lot of one type of comedy.
yeah,
And I've cased the joint. I've done 5 minutes at Roscoe's, and
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
did some time. But to that point, when we hosted the comedy show at our building, I just was the host. And then after I said, "Hey, like I'm not trying to be a host the next time," and you're like, "Cool." I was going to suggest, and I go, "Yeah, I'm very aware that I'm not like sharp on the
Right.
ball, Mr. Stand-up comedian, been doing this 10 years. I'm
Well,
just
it's not
hosting
about
my
that.
friendly neighborhood show."
It's not about that. It's the fact that you are really good at the collaborative work of writing comedy. Like every time you and I would hang out on the crow's nest, we would sit and write jokes, and I'd come back with a bunch of stuff and notes, and then I would go and keep writing those later. But you're really good at bouncing comedy ideas off of
Love
each
it.
other. But I think you don't. I think you, Brett, doesn't enjoy as much all the other trappings of stand-up comedy, the open mics, the stand the all that other stuff. I don't think you like that as much. I think you like the collaborative part of comedy, which is why you're perfectly suited for a writer's room or for something
Love
like
it.
that, or show running, or producing or directing or anything like that. But that's just something that you had to like learn, because I remember you were like, I was definitely, and you were writing a character for it, and then I kept being like, well,
Hmm.
if you're writing a character, write a movie. And you're like, yeah, but I could do this at stand up. I'm like, you could, or you could just do what you want to do, which is write a movie. And then you did exactly that, and it was awesome. So like it's those things where like, I think that all of everything we've been talking about in the second half is just is an awareness. It's a constant a constant sort of inventory of where your passion lies. It's like it almost feels like I've never had an allergy test, you know, where they like prick your back like a million times of the different little
Yeah.
things, and the things that start to react to the things you're allergic to. I feel like that's kind of how I like, not in a gross way, but I feel like that's how I test what excites me. Is I like put into a little dish in my brain. Hey, how about this little idea? And I place it in the dish. And
Little
if the
petri
dish
dish.
starts to react, yeah, if it starts to react, then I'm like, there's something in this dish. But if there's nothing
Hmm.
reacting, I set that aside for later, and maybe there's something later that might react with that dish. But right now, it's not reacting. I need to
Yep.
do something different.
The greatest thing I saw at the Comedy Store, because you can at the Comedy Store you can go free as a comedian. You know, you can just go. As far as last time, I don't know how it is now, but I
Yeah,
was hanging around and I was just sitting, and Judd Apatow popped in to do stand up, and I was like, Judd Apatow does. Why is he doing stand up? That's okay. Like, I'm
yeah,
like, this is gonna be sweet. And he got on, he said, same thing. He goes, I know what you're thinking. What am I doing here? And he goes, but this is how I test my jokes. He goes, so you guys are going to see jokes from a movie I'm writing, and I'm not going to tell you the name of the movie. He goes, but if they're good jokes, you'll know later which
yeah.
ones made the cut. And that stuck with me like a boom. It was like a bulb went off. And I was like, I just need to do stand up to test my jokes
Hmm.
for my films, and it'll help me do my delivery, my setup. And okay, if I can't verbalize it, okay, I can visualize it on the screen.
Hmm.
And then I have to be able to do both. I have to try,
Right,
I have to do both. And
right.
that's a great exercise. So that was probably the best advice that I heard that wasn't directly given to me.
That's great.
Uh, and I just hold on to that all the time. So on that note, I want you to tell everybody where they can buy this shirt.
I don't think they can. There's no more of
Ooh,
that
even
shirt.
better. So if you want to buy it, make a bid. Let me
Yeah,
know.
there's
But
only
that's
like
his
30 of
face.
those. There's 30 of them, 30 of those printed, and I think they've all been given to people. So
I
people
love
can.
it. This is like one of my greatest things ever. And it's from your special. So
It
tell them about
is.
where they can see your
So
specials and your works and everything.
you can find me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube on I'm Greg Berman is funny, at Greg Berman is funny. I My special is currently streaming on a platform called Momitu, which you can go to freemomitu.com. Although they are, unfortunately, they're closing down their operations for now. They might restart up again. But if that happens, I'm going to move my special to YouTube, and then you can watch it on my YouTube channel as well. But I produce a lot of shows in Los Angeles. I produce a lot of shows in like London and now Chicago and New York. So come out. All of my show content is on my Instagram and my website, which, by the way, I just made myself a whole new website. So go check it out because I kind of love it.
I'm redoing mine
Um,
too.
and yeah, that's pretty much it. So reach out,
Cool.
follow me, please. For the love of God, follow me. I need followers.
Yeah. We all, hey, Instagram, Greg Berman is funny, YouTube, TikTok.
All of the same.
And what we'll do is your YouTube channel, I'll collaborate
Amazing.
with this.